Let's get into it first by talking about the good news from just earlier today. We had the 4-star edge, Jake Kreul. He's a big-time edge rusher out of IMG Academy. He committed to Oklahoma on the Pat McAfee show earlier this morning. Some news that Oklahoma fans were quite fearful of and wondering, okay, great, how is this going to end? But nonetheless, on the good side for Oklahoma. The 6'3", 240-pound pass rusher machine. He had ended up choosing the Sooners over Ole Miss and Texas, becoming number 16 for commits in the OU's 2026 class. And Rivals had him ranked at the number 8 edge overall and 41 prospect overall in the entire class across the entire nation. Oklahoma's been locked into Kreul for quite some time now. They've been really looking at him, and he was definitely one of the most coveted targets really in this cycle, I think across the nation, but specifically for Oklahoma. They decided on him. He was Oklahoma was his first Power 4 offer on the table, and they kept that relationship strong, made sure to make their push right there towards the end. And just as we talked about on Thursday, a little concerning with moving that date up to commit a little earlier than what was originally planned, but it ended up being a good one for the Sooners because, thinking about the Sooners, they actually led for Jake Kreul heading into the summer. But then, of course, with his official visit in late June, that's obviously what sealed the deal. And then, of course, he had other visits throughout, and that always raised some eyebrows and raised some questions, wondering just how all of that might play out. And of course, with Jake Kreul, he mentioned how he loves OU, and he's mentioned that to the staff. He's mentioned that to media, and he uses their edge rushers, even pointing out how similar how his game is to our Mason Thomas, how similar those two are to each other in their game and how they play the game. And our Mason Thomas, he's one. Obviously, for Oklahoma fans, we already know this, but he's projected as a first-round NFL draft pick, possibly second at the latest. And so that's some big shoes to fill. But that's something that I think he sees that in himself. But I think also media that has seen him, or even scouts that have seen him, coaches, they all compare his play and his game style to our Mason Thomas, which is something that Oklahoma fans love to hear. You can't get too much higher than that on a kid by comparing him to one of the best on the roster, and a guy that will go to the NFL. And as long as that's the path that he chooses, that's where he's going. Obviously, going back to, I believe it was in June, whenever Jake Kreul had his visit. During that visit, he didn't just walk around campus. He didn't just kind of look around and have a good time. Instead, he actually dove into some film and did some study, broke down Oklahoma's scheme, and really kind of figured out exactly what that fit would be for him and how he could fit in with Oklahoma. And that to me screams football guy. That to me screams this is a guy that is absolutely worth getting and obviously fighting for. And that's exactly what Oklahoma did and ended up winning that fight. Just thinking of how much time he spent trying to figure out if this was the best fit for him and how he could fit into this system. I mean, that's something special that, especially for a kid that young and going into this big stage, being able to make that decision to go in, not just to go in somewhere and do what you might do on a normal visit, maybe get some fun photo shoots and, hang out around campus, see how the campus life looks like outside of just in the football facility. But instead, he decided to spend that at the football facility, showing how much this game means to him. He's also spent a lot of time with, players, specifically the players in the edge room, in that defensive line room, and spent time with our Mason Thomas himself quite a bit, and our Mason Thomas was kind of like his host there during his visits too. So again, making him feel at home and making him feel welcome here within the building. And of course, one of the greats that can tell you how much he's been able to develop at the University of Oklahoma, definitely something worth your while, being able to go through and have our Mason Thomas, of all people, kind of hosting and taking you around and showing you things and helping you out whenever you're on your visit. Jake Kreul even kind of joined the team during a lift, came away impressed by the culture, the energy within the building. And he's talked a lot about that with how much he loves everything about, the University of Oklahoma and what they do within this football program. So very big news getting him. And of course, for Jake Kreul, not just the football side of things, but Jake Kreul even says that he loves Norman's college town atmosphere, which I think anybody that's visited Norman has had that same feeling. It's one of those atmospheres. I think it brings in that small town atmosphere, which I think a lot of recruits like, especially whenever they themselves might come from southern smaller towns, of course, that's something. But of course, big enough where you've got plenty to go to. I think Norman's a pretty good college town, and it does compete with many other college towns, especially for what Jake Kreul was looking for. So he absolutely loved that. Kind of reminded him of other SEC schools that he'd been to. He saw some of the tradition, the SEC type tradition, or the traditional SEC environment there in Norman, which again, high praise for Norman coming from one of the highly touted, the highly envied recruits. That's exactly what you want to hear. And of course, he's expecting electric game days with passionate fans, kind of packing the stadium. He knows what Oklahoma's all about. And of course, he's going to be able to find that out. He's going to be able to see that on September 6th. Correct me if I've got that date wrong, when Michigan comes to town, and he's going to be there in person. I know we talked about that with Parker Thune on Thursday, and I talked with him and mentioning how Jake Kreul making that decision on Tuesday kind of seemed like, for Oklahoma fans, oh crap, he's making this decision before Oklahoma is able to prove what they're going to be this season. That might be a bad thing. But if he can still come to that Michigan game, maybe Oklahoma has a chance to flip him back over to Oklahoma for that official commit and actually sign with Oklahoma. And of course, that was all speculation at the time, but now we don't have to worry about it. Now Oklahoma fans can sit back, relax, and know exactly where he feels very committed. And the fact that he's able and willing to commit this early says a lot about Jake Kreul and how he feels about the Sooners. And of course, with the Oklahoma Sooners, like I mentioned, they beat out Ole Miss and Texas in the final stretch. But Jake Kreul's commitment, I mean, it was big. I mean, you think of his recruitment and what he was going through, and how many schools reached out to him, with teams like Florida, Miami, Ohio State, Penn State. They were all in the mix. They were all teams that were pressing hard for Jake Kreul, wanted him on their roster. And of course, he ended up making to Oklahoma fans the right decision, but making the decision that just made most sense when you look at a player who wants to feel like a part of something. Oklahoma made him feel a part of something from the very get-go, from the beginning, being that first team in the door, that first team to really make a big offer. And so, there was a lot that went into this recruitment for Oklahoma, and very big one at that. And I feel like I keep on repeating that, but that's obviously something that is worth noting. Just take this in, bask in the glory of good commits when you can get them, because obviously Oklahoma fans feel like they haven't really gotten those big time, especially when they build up like that. Oklahoma fans have lost out. Davian Gross being one of the most recent ones, but instead they were able to secure Jake Kreul's commitment really big, and seeing how much he loves the university. That's isn't really a guy who's going to shy away from any kind of competition either. He knows that Oklahoma is going to have a stacked room at that edge position like they do this season. He knows that he's not going to be the best player that steps through those doors in Norman, but he knows that he played at a very high level in high school, and of course the Under Armour All-American game as well this past January. He showed off his talent against some of the best in the country, and he loves that competition. He loves being able to show off that competition. And bottom line with Jake Kreul is that OU landed an elite pass rusher. At least the ceiling is very high, and of course the floor is also fairly high for being the commit that he is, and who he is, and what he brings to the table. And of course, he's bought into the scheme. He fits the scheme. The culture, the community. It was a big win for Brent Venables and this staff, and absolutely one that they will take in for a little while. Of course, if you look at the fans on the south side of the Red River, this is something I came across on social media. I believe I was looking on X. earlier today and looking at some of the stuff going on. And of course, when big commits like this happen, then, the fans of the team that was hoping to get him, and if they felt so confident that they were going to get him, they get irritated, they get frustrated, right? And Oklahoma fans do the same. And Oklahoma fans get frustrated that we didn't secure the guy that felt like a sure thing. Even down the stretch, it felt like, for this instance, Jake Kreul, man, like it felt like he should have gone to Texas. That was the talk leading up to it. And Oklahoma fans, Oklahoma media, including myself and Parker, even said, listen, I know what this looks like. It does look like Texas is kind of favored at this point. All signs say that they're not. All signs say that Jake Kreul's still coming to Oklahoma, but I don't know. All signs are kind of leading towards, I don't know, maybe he's leaning towards Texas now.